Now here is the risk that Browns had to take with I love you, Cleveland. And I love you, Ohio. And a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan along with Ryan Smith. Great to have you aboard. We've got so much on the platter today. We're very excited, of course, because tomorrow we are going to be covering the College Company Seniors event at Firestone Country Club. Excited, Ryan?
I am so excited, Bruce. I can't believe the week is already here. I feel like I've been waiting for this for a couple weeks now, ever since, we figured out and we started to plan all the things we're going to be doing there at Firestone. Just such an incredible venue, such an incredible event. Obviously, there's so much philanthropy at the heart of it all, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it.
And the festivities actually begin this afternoon and this evening with the Infinity Zone, and you are going to have access to that Infinity Zone by getting your tickets, collegegolf.com. You can still get them, collegegolf.com, for such a worthwhile cause. $34 million has been raised for charitable organizations over the past couple of years. Just $2.6 million, to say the least, has been raised. So it's a fabulous event, and we're excited because tomorrow we're going to have programming. We're actually going to be on the air live at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and from the Infinity Zone, where Big Play will have a booth. We are the media outlet for this gigantic event, and we'll be doing our show at 1 o'clock, but there's a show or two prior to us, right, Ryan?
Yeah, so Thursday, obviously, you mentioned you'll be live at 1 o'clock. Matt Fontana will be live at 11. At 3 o'clock after you, Bruce, will be Carlos Baerga and his show, and then we got shows Friday as well.
Yeah, and a full slate of shows Friday. The actual tournament will begin tomorrow with such notables. Let me go through just a few. And by the way, on my show tomorrow, we will have, this is a special version of Bonus Time with Drennan. We'll have Jimmy Hanlon joining us, and also some other surprise guests that we're lining up for you. But just to give you a few of the notable names that you can check out up close and personal, if you will, collegegolf.com for tickets. Stuart Appleby, Angel Cabrera, major championship winner. KJ Choi, Stuart Sink won the British Open over Tom Watson quite a few years ago. Remember that? Watson going for yet another British. Darren Clark, previous British Open champion. Retief Guzan, U.S. Open champion. Padraig Harrington, a British Open champion. Miguel Angel Jimenez, he's the one with the nice ponytail. Bernard Longer, Masters champion, major champion. Tom Lehman, Justin Leonard, Billy Mayfair, Rocco Mediate, Corey Pavin, Vijay Singh, Masters champion, Mike Weir, and last but not least, my man John Daly, who I will be participating in an event for charity United Way this coming weekend, starting on Sunday evening, carrying over into Monday at the Lake Club in Poland, Ohio, right outside Boardman and Youngstown. So plenty of good stuff coming your way starting actually this afternoon and this evening, if you get your tickets. Again, that's collegegolf.com. Check it out. These are some of the greatest players of all time, now seniors participating in what is called the Champions Tour. And, of course, Matt Colleg sponsors this great event every single year. We're very excited and proud to be a part of it here at Big Play. I've got a ton for you in content today on the Guardians. You don't want to miss it. I'll start in the next segment, and then we'll touch upon a couple of other things. But I do want to acknowledge the Florida Panthers of the National Hockey League. We do not talk hockey hardly at all on this show. Primarily because we don't have hockey, in Cleveland or in Cincinnati. We do have it in Columbus. And when I was on the network, on Sports Time Ohio, and then, of course, Fox, with Fox, we did the games of the Columbus Blue Jackets. But the Florida Panthers have won their second Stanley Cup championship in a row against Edmonton, 4-2. It's funny, Ryan. when I was in college at Columbia in Chicago, majoring in radio and TV, my freshman year, I hooked up with a senior who was really into hockey. I can't even stand up on skates. And he used to scalp tickets at the Blackhawks games. And that's when the Blackhawks were fantastic. They had Bobby Hull, Stan Mikita. That was the era where Boston had Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, a former Blackhawk. Montreal had Yvan Cornelier and great teams. But I got into hockey so much, and I went to all the games it took me 4.5 years to get through college. And I went to all the games, the home games. And I got to know like MLB, NFL, NBA, all the players in the NHL, and I loved it. So when I got the job here in Cleveland, I was very excited to come and cover the Barons and the NHL. And that's when they folded in Cleveland and went and became the Minnesota North Stars. So I fell out of touch is the bottom line. And I regret that. And it wasn't until many decades later that the Blue Jackets actually started up, Ryan.
Bruce, I would be totally lying to you if I said that I've ever heard or knew that Cleveland had an NHL team by the name of the Barons. That is actually news to me.
Yeah, there was the Cleveland Crusaders and the Cleveland Barons, and they eventually became the Minnesota North Stars. But hockey's a great sport, and if you haven't experienced it, the Olympics will be coming up now. We're approaching in a Winter Olympic year, so check it out. All right, when we come back, I'm going to devote the next 2 segments to the Guardians. You don't want to miss this. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan. Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. Energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
I love you, Menor Nissan. Hi, Bruce Drennan here from my good friends at Menor Nissan. Ray Sminchak, the whole staff. As you know, I've been doing a lot of our shows down in Florida, just returned. Great to be back on the home confines of our beautiful studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport for Big Play. But I got to tell you, I drove my Nissan Rogue from Menor Nissan down to Florida, had the rack up on top with extra luggage. It was absolutely the most splendid, beautiful ride. Just as smooth as could be. My wife also drives a Rogue. We rotated driving down there and back, but I just can't recommend it any more so to you. Get on out there, test drive a Rogue or a Murano or any of the other great products that they have out there at Menor Nissan. Don't forget, they're now in partnership with Infinity of Akron and Infinity of Beechwood. Check those great vehicles out as well. Service department is absolutely fantastic. Went back to the dealership to get maintenance after that long drive down there and back. And give them a call. Set up an appointment. Of course, check out their website at MenorNissan.com. That's MenorNissan.com. I love you, Menor Nissan. Are you sure you want to trade Stephen Kwan? In the bottom of the 8th inning in last night's game, the Giants had runners at first and second, nobody out. Wilmer Flores hit a liner to left. Kwan immediately reacted and raced forward to snag it. He noticed that Casey Smith came too far off the bag at second, so he fired a P to second base to double him off and help preserve the 3-4 Guardians lead at the time, which held up, of course, for the victory. Now, what's interesting is Smith led off that inning with a similar liner to left that Kwan knocked down but was unable to secure. However, that helped Kwan judge the liner by Flores, which resulted in the double play. Then in the 9th inning, Kwan caught up to a fly ball down the left field line with the bags juiced and only 1 out. He turned and fired a strike to home to Hedges to hold the runner at third. Emmanuel Clase then struck out Lee to end the ball game, and the Guardians came away with a 3-2 victory. You know, Kwan has developed into one of the best hitters in the American League. He's currently at a .298 clip, 6 homers, 23 RBIs. He's got 14 doubles, 9 stolen bases. He's extremely difficult to strike out. He keeps fouling off pitches. He works pitchers consistently deep into the count, gets their pitch count up. But remember this. He's also one of the best defensive outfielders in all of the major leagues. In his first 3 major league seasons, he earned the Golden Glove Award, and he's on track this year to get yet another, a 4th in a row. He works just as hard on his defense as he does in the batting cage, and his arm strength has improved with greater velocity. It's increased by several miles per hour from what it was just a year ago. What a ball player he is. So let's think long and hard before we say, let's trade Quan before the deadline. Now, there's no question that you could get a good return for Quan, but is he not one of the best leadoff hitters also in the major leagues? They're hard to come by, you know. And one of the best all-around ball players. What's also special about Quan last night is that he grew up in the Bay Area, and he grew up as a Giants fan, and his brother was at the game, seated in left center field, so his brother was able to up close and personal see his brother Steven make these tremendous defensive plays. Nice win for the Guardians, snapping the 3-game losing streak. But let's face the reality of the Guardians' position as we approach the halfway point of the season. In last night's 3-2 Guardians victory, Cleveland was out-hit 10-6. And thanks to a clutch base hit by Carlos Santana in the 4th and a solo shot by Gabriel Arias in the 6th, Cleveland was able to preserve the 3-2 victory for the win. Because the relief pitchers, Matt Festa, Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, and Emmanuel Clase, held San Francisco scoreless for the final 4 innings of the game. Slade Ciccone did his job starting the game, going the first 5 frames, rendering only 2 runs on 4 hits. Now, he walked 3, but he struck out 6. I like Ciccone. I like him. And he may turn out to be a valuable addition to the rotation. Remember, we got him in that Arizona trade with the Diamondbacks in exchange for Josh Naylor. That was last December. However, the Guardians' hitting woes continue. Granted, last night we were up against one of the best starting pitchers in the major leagues in Robbie Ray. He's a former Cy Young winner, and he is also a serious candidate once again this year for the Cy Young Award in the National League. Even with the loss, his record is 8-2. He's got a 2.68 ERA, outstanding. He's got 97 strikeouts and 87 1/3 innings pitched. But here's the disappointing facts about our offense. In just the month of June, we've been shut out 3 times. We've scored only 2 runs 3 times. We've scored only 3 runs 3 times, with the only win last night. And we've scored only 4 runs 4 times, going 3-1 in those games. Championship teams score much more, including Cleveland last year when we won the division. We are 5-9 in the month of June. Detroit is 9-6. This is a perfect example of what I have been preaching for decades. When a team falls this far out of first place, in this case, we're 9.5 games behind them, it becomes a simple case of mathematics. Even though we have 11 games to go to reach the halfway point of this season, Let's say you reverse the records of Detroit and Cleveland in the month of June. That only translates into a 3.5 game gain on the divisional leader, Detroit. And that would still leave you 6 games behind them. So unless you think that the Tigers will go in and experience a total collapse, winning this division is now a real long shot. Yes, it has happened before. The Cubs in 69 blew it. The Phillies in 64. There's been other examples, yes. But let's remember this. Detroit's got a starting pitcher by the name of Tarek Skubal. He's what traditionally has been called in baseball a stopper. In other words, he theoretically will stop a losing streak that his team might be involved in because he'll pitch every fifth game, I should say. I want to examine in the next segment where we're at as far as the wild card, the trade deadline. Are we buyers? Are we sellers? We'll do this after the break, but before we do that break, any comments so far, Ryan?
Well, being bottom 10 in team average and runs scored per game certainly isn't a good formula to follow if you want to make the postseason, Bruce. I shouldn't say yesterday, as we're taping this yesterday. This is, of course, on Wednesday. It was a refreshing win. It would have been nice to see them put up a couple crooked numbers, but a win is a win nonetheless. But it was nice to see others be the ones that are producing other than the usual suspects, Gabriel Arias, Jonathan Rodriguez, Austin Hedges, you mentioned, with the sacrifice fly. That is what needs to continue, in addition, as our stars being our stars as usual. So if that's a sign of things to come, I'm happy. But Bruce, you mentioned the how many games back you are. You're half a game back from the wild card as we speak today. A lot of work to make up, but luckily we're not even at the half-point way.
Bonus time with Drennan continues in a minute here on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Pure AV, luxury home automation. Experience your dream smart home by visiting pureavcorp.com.
All right, let's first take a look at the wild card situation. Ryan mentioned it before we went to the break. Cleveland and Boston are both only a half a game out of the wild card spot behind Seattle, who's right above us, Toronto above them, and Tampa Bay, who right now holds the number 1 wild card spot. Minnesota is only a half a game behind Cleveland and Boston in the wild card standings. Texas is only 1 game back of Cleveland and Boston. The LA Angels are only a game and a half behind Cleveland and Boston. The Kansas City Royals are only 2 games behind Cleveland and Boston. Do you get the point? When a team is in an extremely tight wild card race, like is the case right now in the American League, teams are beating up on one another. It's so difficult to make up ground. And you're facing the reality of having to overtake a lot of teams depending on how far back you fall out of the wild card qualification. With that being said, Cleveland has 2 more games in San Francisco. Then after 3 in Sacramento, the Guardians will close out the month of June against 2 playoff contenders, Toronto and St. Louis. The month of July doesn't get any easier. Series with the National League Central Division leading Cubs, Division leading Detroit, American League West Division leader Houston are next before the All-Star break. Brutal. Now, theoretically, the schedule eases up after the All-Star break with a series against the Athletics, a series against the Baltimore Orioles, and a series against the hapless Colorado Rockies on the schedule. So, depending on where we are at the break, the Cleveland front office must determine whether to roll the dice and think that we are still a realistic wild card contender, or do we sell off? Do we sell off Santana, Lane Thomas, Emmanuel Clase, or even Stephen Kwan? The only untouchable is Jose. And forget this nonsense that you might have heard on some of the radio shows that they got to still sell tickets, you know. But as I stated in the previous segment, do we dare trade Stephen Kwan? You tell me. Clase can be replaced by Cade Smith, and you can definitely get a good return for Clase. Santana and Thomas, I don't think that they will bring much in return. But consider this. We have several minor leaguers that certainly appear to have earned a shot to try the major leagues. Juan Brito, Chase DeLorder, C.J. Kifus, Parker Messick, and Franco Alleman. Or do we trade these prospects or some of them for a shot at the wild card with a veteran bat or bats? Now, with Cleveland's financial restraints, I don't see that happening. It's not Cleveland's history. It is not Antonetti and Chernoff's history. I wouldn't be surprised if Clase, Santana, and Thomas are all dealt to make room for these kids to get their feet wet, to prepare for the 2026 season. That team, looking ahead to 2026, let's say that this happens. Hopefully, your starting rotation will sound like this: Shane Bieber, Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, Slade Ciccone, and Logan Allen. That's pretty good. You would still have an excellent bullpen. Smith would be your closer. Cleveland's had a great bullpen, and they still do this year. They're not putting up the numbers they did last year. But the pieces are there. So the question is, will we be able to score enough runs? That's the bottom line here to go along with this great pitching. You know, Cleveland's outfielders ranked 27th of 30 teams in run production offensively. 27th. Outfielders. The game has changed. There was an era where Garcia Parra and Jeter and all these guys, Rodriguez was originally, A-Rod was originally a shortstop. There was an era where shortstops hit second baseman, not so much. But you look at the corner infield positions and you look at your outfield positions, mostly the corner outfield positions, and our outfielders combined, that includes center field, 27th of 30 teams in the major leagues we rank. Offensive production. 27th. You can't win a championship like that. So that's my take on where we are on June the 18th of the 2025 campaign. Ryan.
I would love to know the answer to where Chris Antonetti's mind is right now, sitting one game above 500 as we're getting closer to that July 31st deadline. And if I had to take a guess, I think he'd be leaning towards us being sellers. You mentioned the numbers. I don't see them getting much better, especially that stretch. And I guess it's maybe a good thing that you're getting these hard teams and these hard series as you're getting towards that deadline, because you get a real look at what this team is capable of. In terms of selling Stephen Kwan, I would be heartbroken. What would it say to Jose Ramirez? You know, center field and especially right field have been such a black hole for this Cleveland Guardians team for the longest time. You got to have something in left field. And you talk about selling tickets. Outside of going to watch Jose Ramirez play, the second player people are going to see is Stephen Kwan. You mentioned best leadoff hitter in my lifetime, certainly. I wasn't there for the Kenny Lofton days, but what Steven Kwan brings, I mean, he's just such a gamer, brings it every day. And outside of Jose Ramirez, your most consistent player, and Bruce, it's not even close.
I failed to mention Jhonkensy Noel. Have you seen his numbers since he went down to the minors?
People are talking about the gap between AAA pitching and Major League pitching is more seismic than it's ever been.
We had a guy by the name of Jesus Aguilar who we gave a chance after chance after chance after chance, and he killed it in the minors, couldn't do it in the majors with the Indians. They gave him ample time and opportunities. Then he goes to the National League. He becomes an all-star. Jay Bell. This is way before your time, Ryan. Shortstop. Hot prospect. This is when we were still, this goes so far back, we were still training in Tucson before we even went to Winter Haven. He was given the shortstop position. I remember seeing him in spring training. I was in Tucson covering a team in spring training as I did every year. First 2 months of the season, the Indians stayed with him. He couldn't even hit 200. They trade him. He goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Every year after that, he was an all-star. You don't know with a lot of guys. So that's perhaps where we're at with Jhonkensy Noel, but he certainly will get another shot at the big show. So if we do sell these players, and I do believe, do you agree with me that Santana, Thomas, and Clase will probably be dealt before the deadline?
Yes, I would say at least 2 of those 3.
Okay. Then you bring up these kids. And you, like I say, get their feet wet. Get them used to the major leagues. Let's see what they can do. There is no substitute in sports for experience in the professional level, and let alone the playoff level. So that's where I'm at with our team. And it's a matter of me facing the reality of the situation. The Ask Bruce segment is always a segment where you can agree, disagree, tell me where you're at with my opinions here on the show. So fire away. All right, when we come back, I want to take a look at the All-Star voting and where we're at with some other baseball news that was quite interesting. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan. Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com today.
You know, ever since I came to Cleveland, one of my expressions is love you, Cleveland. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I start the show and end the show with that. And I want to say it again here in the middle of the show because you are doing your part to justifiably vote in Jose Ramirez, who, in my opinion, for years now has been an underrated superstar. And he's running away with the balloting for third base, for starting third baseman for the American League in the upcoming All-Star game. He has garnered, a couple of days ago, they came out with the totals thus far. 968,754 for Jose at third. Next to him is Bregman of Boston. Bregman's been hurt for the last 3 weeks. 397,581. You know, when they first let the fans vote, I remember Willie Mays had switched over from the Giants back to New York to the Mets, the hapless Mets, and because he started his career with the New York Giants, made the catch against Vic Wertz in the 54 World Series against our Indians. But Mays ran away with the voting as one of the starting outfielders, and he was hitting like 154 at the time. I mean, come on. But Jose is very deserving, so keep it up. And it's also showing it's not – the 968,000 isn't just Guardians fans, you know. That's getting a lot of votes from people who are smart baseball people and smart baseball fans around the country who recognize his great talent. And it's a shame his 39-game on-base streak came to an end. But just another example of what a great player. Underrated superstar. And he's great defensively, too. And remember this, his natural position was second base. He's transitioned into one of the best defensive third basemen in the business. Outfielders. Judge, 1,568,000. Riley Green next of Detroit, 675. Trout third, 475,000. And Trout was hurt. That's L.A. stuffing the ballot box. And fourth is Quan. That's why I mentioned he's aforementioned. Trout is third with 475. Quan right behind him at 457, 882. Trout is at 475, 265. But Javier Baez of Detroit is at 421, 342, right behind Quan, and Bellinger of the Yankees at 416. And then lastly, our manager, Stephen Vogt, has been invited by Aaron Boone, the manager of the American League team, to be a coach, and Stephen has accepted. So that's good, too. Now, the other baseball news I wanted to cover is the blockbuster trade by Boston with San Francisco, where the Red Sox have dealt Rafael Devers to San Francisco for 4 players. They get Kyle Harrison, a left-handed young pitcher who's very good and could be great. Right-handed pitcher Jordan Hicks, used to be with St. Louis. Right-handed pitcher Jose Bayo, and right fielder James Tibbs. In San Francisco last night, Devers made his debut for the Giants, and he went 2 for 5 with an RBI double. He struck out twice. Devers in Boston, of course, was always the third baseman, and then they were able to get Bregman, so Devers was all peeved off about that, so he became the DH. Then when Casas, their first baseman, went down, they wanted Devers to play at first base, and he said, screw you. So that was the last straw. And by the way, now he's the last guy from that 2018 World Series team that beat the Dodgers in 5 games to be leaving Boston. Mookie Betts, of course, went to the Dodgers. Bogarts went to San Diego. Chris Sale wound up with Atlanta. But and one of the happiest guys, and he came out publicly and said so, that Devers was traded was Ryan O'Hearn of the Baltimore Orioles, who is now in first place for the DH spot for the American League with 353,000 votes. Devers had 796, so he goes to the National League, and he trails Ohtani, who has 1,398,000. No chance of winning the first-string DH spot. And Judge leads all players with 1,568,000. Your take?
You know, it's funny for Boston. You know, just as soon as you think they got their, superstar franchise Red Sox for lifer, you thought it with Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts. Now the latest is Rafael Devers. Obviously didn't like acquiring Alex Bregman, even though Alex Bregman is defensively better in every single metric. So you got to kind of understand that. But then he didn't want to play first base, gets traded to San Francisco. And what does he do, Bruce? His attitude completely changes. He says he's willing to do whatever the team needs for him, of them to win. And Pedro Martinez came out and was not happy with the Red Sox, didn't like the way they handled the situation, stuck up for Rafael Devers and says he's nothing but a great teammate and a great ball player. So we'll see how the rest of his career goes, if it plays out the way we all think it does, because he is one of the best hitters of the baseball in the major leagues of today.
NBA, U.S. Open, next.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
Indiana needed to win Game 4 to take a 3-1 lead, because allowing Oak City to beat them on their home floor evened up the series. And then, of course, in Game 5, Halliburton got hurt. In that first quarter, he returned, but he just wasn't the same guy. He was 0 for 6. He did score 4 points, all from the charity stripe. And I think Indiana's going to get closed out here in 6 games myself. Any further word on Halliburton?
We don't know if he's going to play yet, because you're dealing with that calf strain, and you don't want something to happen where you go out, you lose anyway, and then you pop it, and then you're going to be without your superstar for basically the entire next season. So we don't know the word on that. It's tough to say a player is going to sit out in the NBA Finals, Bruce, but when you're looking at the logistics of it, your back's already against the wall, and it seems as though your season's over. It'd be really hard to go out and let Halliburton play with that risk of injury.
You agree with me? They had to win Game 4.
I do. And I think the same thing as you, Bruce. I think it'll be over in Indiana. Although I always love when they win at their hometown, what the NBA champion is. But I think it'll be the Thunder.
Well, they'll have to reach back, take a deep breath. Without Halliburton, or even if he does by some miracle play, he's not going to be at 100%. Just not enough time to heal. So it'll be. I'm sure I can't see Oak City blowing them out. Can you in Game 6?
Bruce, I don't know without Tyrese Halliburton, and I understand Tyrese Halliburton has struggled in the series tremendously. You go back to the Game 6, 0 points in the first half, comes out, and I believe it was only 4 points. So I can't say confidently that they won't blow him out.
Yeah, well, maybe you're right. It's been quite a run for Indiana. It's a shame to see it end like this if indeed it's inevitable. I think it is inevitable. But if it happens, in this Game 6 tomorrow night, because it's been quite a run, really, knocking off the Cavs, who had by far the best record in the East, and their fast work of the New York Knicks, who defeated Boston. And this was the second year in a row Indiana made it to the Eastern Finals. And here they go, and they win Game 1 against Oak City on their home floor. But disappointing finish for them. But still a year of great accomplishment, that's for sure. So all the more reason what Ryan said about risking further injury to Halliburton for next season. We'll see. A lot of people didn't care for this year's U.S. Open. I adored it because the course was the winner. And the way Spaun won the tournament at the end on 17 and then hitting that bomb on 18, oh my goodness gracious. It was just so dramatic. It was so beautiful. And he bogeyed 4 of the first 5 holes. He hit the pin on one of those holes, and it bounced back so far off the green almost to his feet. Unbelievable how he maintained his composure and was the only player that wound up under par. The U.S. Open's my favorite because they make the course so tough that it humbles the greatest players in the world to see them in the rough and try to get out of it, and they stay in the rough, or they go in a trap and they can't get out of the trap, or they hit from the trap into the rough, or they go into the ditch, and then they start taking penalties. And I just absolutely adore seeing them humbled like the rest of us saps that love this game. Tomorrow, Jimmy Hanlon will be joining us in our special version of Bonus Time with Drennan when we broadcast live at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon from Firestone Country Club, the site of the College Companies Champions Tournament. And Jimmy and I are going to recap this U.S. Open. We'll go into all the details, a very close look at this year's U.S. Open at Oakmont, and look forward to the British Open. So don't miss that show tomorrow. When we come back, it'll be time for Ask Bruce.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Infinity. Luxury experiences for those who dare to be different. Visit infinityofbeechwood.com today.
Ask Bruce segment. Fire away, partner.
Alrighty, hey Bruce, we'll start here with some Guardians questions. Hey Bruce, if the Guardians turn out to be sellers at the trade deadline and take offers for Shane Bieber, is it possible that it could be a buyer beware scenario?
I don't see that happening because he's coming off Tommy John. His market value is going to be very, very questionable at best. I don't see it. Our best hope is that he can recover from Tommy John, like a lot of pitchers have. Some of them haven't, but a lot of pitchers have come back from Tommy John and have excelled. And that's why, if you paid close attention to what I said in those 2 long segments where I looked at our situation right now in this season, looking ahead to 2026, you have a healthy Shane Bieber backed up by Bybee, Williams, Saccone, and Logan Allen. I love the prospects of that rotation, but I don't see market value for Bieber coming off Tommy John, no.
All right, hey Bruce, would you like to see the Guardians to consider calling up Chase DeLauter, optioning Jonathan Rodriguez, and then platooning Nolan Jones and Lane Thomas, and then platooning CDL, Chase DeLauter,
How much longer
and
can
Angie
we go
Williams?
with Nolan Jones? How much longer can we go with him? I love the acquisition of reacquisition of Jones at the beginning of the season to platoon with Noel, righty-lefty. It didn't work. Noel's in the minors. Jones is still struggling. How much longer can we go with the guy? I mean, come on. We got guys in the minor leagues that are just dying to get up there and show everybody what they can do. And that's the future of the ball club. Jones is still young enough to emerge, but how much longer can we go with him? I guess if we do become sellers, you can buy some more time for him and see. But on a platoon basis and not playing every single day, how good of a gauge is that? Is that fair to Jones?
Alrighty, hey Bruce, we talked about this a little bit previously on this episode, but they want you to pull out your crystal ball. Do you think Stephen Kwan gets extended, or does he end up getting traded?
I think they have to. Jose's an untouchable, and the only other player that's close to being an untouchable's got to be Quan. That's why I featured him so strongly on today's show. Leadoff men are so hard to come by. Great leadoff men. He's a great leadoff man, and he's a leader of this team by example. You know, he gets out. He's one of these players that gets out there real early in the day. If there's a 7 o'clock start, he's at the ballpark at like 1:30. At 2:30, he's on the field working on fundamentals, not just shagging balls, but pretending they're really the live game, and he's charging it as if it was a real live game. He works at his game, and he's such a great example, a clubhouse leader for as young as he is. I'd extend him. I would definitely extend him. He and Ramirez are the face of this franchise, and Bieber if he recovers from Tommy John.
Alrighty, hey Bruce, which Guardians arm in the bullpen do you think deserves most to make the 2025 All-Star game?
I don't. I think you've got to cast 1,000, so to speak. I don't. I think as a conglomerate, they're still one of the best bullpens in all of the major leagues, although they don't have the numbers to back that up like they did a year ago. But that doesn't mean to say that they're still not one of the best bullpens. And next year, same thing. That's why I alluded to that also in a previous segment here on today's show. We've got great arms in that bullpen. We've got guys that have been hurt all season long that should be back next year. And we got some kids in the minors that should emerge come next spring training that can certainly contribute and throw in the upper 90s, let alone 100 miles per hour. That's all the time we have for this version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Don't forget, join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock live from Firestone Country Club, storied Firestone. We have a special version of our program. It's going to be a lot of fun covering the Colleague Companies Championship, the greatest seniors on the planet. I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. You have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I love you, Cleveland.